So let's talk about how a quiet, wooden box learned to scream. This is the story of how some brilliant inventors, and honestly some rebellious artists, took an instrument you could barely hear and turned it into the defining voice of an entire century.
For the longest time, before it could ever dream of being the sound of rock and roll, the guitar was kind of stuck. You can think of it like the quiet kid in the back of the classroom, always there, but you never really heard what they had to say. And that one single fundamental problem? It's what drove every single innovation that came next.
I mean, it really was that simple, but it was a huge problem. Just picture a 1920s jazz big band, right? You've got these blaring trumpets, booming trombones, a drummer just pounding away, and then there's the guitarist strumming for their life, and you can't hear a single note. They were part of the rhythm, something you felt more than you heard. The guitar desperately needed to find its voice.
And that voice, well, it didn't come from wood. It came from wire. The answer was electricity, and it wasn't just going to make the guitar louder. Oh no, it was about to completely change what a guitar could even do.
Okay, so how does this little piece of magic work? Well, it's pure physics, really. This thing, the pickup, is the absolute heart of the electric guitar. And what's so cool about it is that it doesn't hear sound like a microphone does. Nope, it senses the vibration of the metal strings moving and turns that movement directly into an electrical current. It's a direct line from the player's fingers to the amplifier's speaker.
In the first real breakthrough, it looked nothing like a guitar. The frying pan, from way back in 1931, was this totally weird design. But it proved something absolutely vital. You didn't need a big, hollow acoustic body to make an electric sound. In fact, getting rid of it was actually a good thing. It made the notes ring out way longer.
And this is where the music really starts to change. When Gibson finally put a pickup on a more traditional-looking hollow-body guitar, a young jazz player named Charlie Christian showed the entire world what was possible. He stepped out from just strumming chords in the back and started playing these solos that were as powerful and clear as any saxophone. For the very first time, the guitarist could be the star of the show.
But you know how it is. You solve one problem, and you immediately create a brand new one. As guitar players started cranking up these powerful new amps, they unleashed a monster, an absolutely ear-splitting howl that almost derailed the whole electric revolution. And that screech came from a really nasty, vicious cycle. The sound blasting from the amp would make the guitar's hollow body vibrate. The pickup would then, it would pick up that vibration, send it right back to the amp to get even louder, which made the guitar vibrate even more, and you get this uncontrollable shrieking loop from hell.
The solution came from the legend himself, the musician and inventor Les Paul, and it was just brilliantly simple. His logic was just undeniable. If the hollow body is causing the feedback, then let's just get rid of the hollow body. His prototype, nicknamed the Log, was literally a solid block of wood with a neck and pickups bolted on. It was crude, for sure, but it worked perfectly.
But the world wasn't quite ready for it. Gibson, the biggest guitar company on the planet at the time, took one look at Les Paul's invention and pretty much laughed him out of the room. A broomstick with a pickup, can you believe it? But that rejection, that opened the door for somebody else.
And that somebody else was a radio repairman named Leo Fender, a guy with a brilliant mind for manufacturing. And this is what set the stage for one of the greatest rivalries in music history. You had Fender's practical, no-nonsense approach against Gibson's old-school tradition, who were now kind of forced to team up with Les Paul. And man, their approaches could not have been more different. Fender's Telecaster was a working musician's tool. It was basically a solid plank of wood that you could fix with a screwdriver. 2 years later, Gibson, finally realizing they'd made a huge mistake, released the Les Paul. It was the total opposite. Heavy, elegant, crafted like a piece of fine furniture. One sounded twangy and bright, the other was dark and creamy. And those two sounds would define popular music for decades to come.
So, with the basic designs locked in, the 1950s became a golden age of innovation. The instrument wasn't just a tool to be heard anymore, it was becoming a weapon for pure artistic expression.
The pace of change was just dizzying. Only 4 years after the Telecaster, Fender drops the Stratocaster on the world, and it looked like it came from a spaceship with its sleek curves and 3 pickups. A year after that, Gibson solves that annoying electrical hum from the early pickups with the Humbucker, a new pickup that also happened to have a much louder, thicker tone, a tone that would become the actual sound of rock music. So by the 1960s, all the essential tools were there. The Tele, the Les Paul, the Strat. The inventors, they probably thought they'd perfected the instrument. They had absolutely no idea that a new generation was about to come along and just tear up the instruction manual.
And then came Jimi Hendrix. See, before him, distortion was just a technical flaw. It was the ugly sound of an amplifier being pushed way too hard. Hendrix heard it as pure, raw emotion. He took a standard Stratocaster, plugged it into these massive amplifiers, and used pedals to twist, bend, and sculpt the sound into something nobody had ever even imagined. He wasn't just playing a guitar. He was controlling an entire system of electricity.
After Hendrix, well, the floodgates were just blown wide open. From the 1980s all the way to today, the guitar has just kept evolving, adapting to whatever new sounds and styles the music demands.
You can really see here how the guitar just constantly adapts. The 80s demanded speed and technical wizardry, so we got super Strat guitars with super thin necks. Then the 90s rejected all that perfection, and bands like Nirvana made cheap, forgotten pawn shop guitars cool again. The 2000s gave us the digital revolution, where you could carry every amp ever made in a little box. And today, to get those super heavy sounds, we're literally just adding more strings.
And the evolution isn't just about sound anymore, it's also about its own construction. With some of the traditional woods used for guitars becoming endangered, builders are now making incredible sounding instruments out of things like composite materials and even recycled paper, making sure the guitar has a future in a more eco-conscious world.
And this really says it all, doesn't it? For all its incredible technology, the electric guitar is still, at its core, a piece of wood with some strings on it. It's that perfect mix of something ancient and something from the future that has kept it at the very heart of our music for almost 100 years.
So it leaves us with this thought. The entire history of this instrument has been a story of creative problem solving. It was too quiet, so they made it loud. It was too noisy, so they cleaned it up. It wasn't fast enough or low enough, they fixed that too. So as music keeps changing, what's the next challenge? What's the next sonic problem the guitar will have to solve? What will it learn to do next?